In a world where the it thing is always changing, sometimes you need a tour guide or two to help you find your way to pop culture's paradise. If you find yourself reminiscing or in need of a good recommendation, these two have you covered. And now, here's your hosts, Joey and Jeff.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Paradise. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Joe.
And today we're going to talk about some big name pilots that never got off the ground that you need to know about.
Nothing worse than a pilot that's grounded, but we're actually talking television pilots. And every year they make a ton of these programs that almost nobody gets to watch. Isn't that kind of bizarre?
It really is. It's hard to think about like how many TV shows we possibly could have enjoyed, but we never really got the chance to see them.
And, I hope this becomes a long-running series for us, because we got 4 here today, and they got big names, a solid enough premise to go to series. Today we're going to see Jessica Simpson in a pilot. We're going to see a Jennifer Love Hewitt / Ed O'Neill before he went on to do Modern Family and post Married with Children. We're going to see everyone's favorite animated bobcat, Bubsy.
What could possibly go wrong?
Everything, as we're about to find out.
Yep.
And also, we are going to see Macaulay Culkin in a sitcom.
Yeah, this was weird to see because he obviously became a very kind of, quiet, kind of kept to himself. And then all of a sudden, here he is on this pilot. It's hard to even like pinpoint what age he might have been at the time, like early 20s or so. But it was
that weird time period where like Macaulay Culkin wasn't the kid actor and he wasn't in the tabloids anymore, and he was just sort of coming back to film, and he had sort of those minor movies. I think there was that movie with Mandy Moore. I think it was right around this time period. And then there was, the heck is it called, Party Monster or something that he got a lot of fame for.
That was bizarre, huh?
And then he disappeared again, and then now in the last few years he's back. I don't know if he'd do a sitcom like we're going to see here today.
Dude, one of the things that really came across watching this, not just this particular one with Macaulay Culkin, but all of them pretty much besides Bubsy, a lot of this comedy would not fly today at all. At all. But that's part of the charm about it, and that's part of why I really enjoyed what we're about to discuss today.
Yeah, you made it a date night, right? Instead of a nice quality movie, you said, we got 4 pilots here.
Yeah, I did. I turned it into a date night. I tried to make it fun. The opening episode we watch, Jessica Simpson, and of course, immediately you get the encoder or videographer or Ripper's, tag that he throws in the beginning, and she's like, is this part of the show that we're watching? I'm like, oh, no, wait a minute. No.
Oh, God. Remember back when you would download this stuff? I think the encoder was so impressed with their work that, like, they're the king of piracy, and you need to know that blank put this on the net for you.
Yep.
And then they use, Windows Movie Maker, and they're like, here's what we need. This is a Jessica Simpson pilot. I'm going to get 2 photos of her with an upskirt shot. We're going to put a rainbow effect on it.
Yep.
And then we're going to get Snoop Dogg going, there's some bomb-ass pussy. And it's like...
over and over again. It's like, this is the introduction to date night. It was off to a rocky start, to say the least.
And, man, I could remember some of these, like, injected with a poison. All right, now here's 4 minutes of somebody else's backyard wrestling, or death matches, or bum fights, which is something we're going to have to talk about someday.
Oh, if we don't talk about bum fights, we are doing the internet a disservice. I'm just going to put that out there.
Jessica Simpson plays Jessica Sampson, and what is she doing in this pilot?
She is essentially brought in to be some sort of correspondent.
Think of the internet as a brain. It's a spider web.
They're doing just like a special piece with her. And then it turns into that every guy in the office just becomes smitten with her, of course, because she's Jessica Simpson, right? And they all have a crush, and they give her job. And she kind of wants to, prove it to herself. But also it's something for her to do. Like her line was, look, it's a way for me to still talk to my fans even if I'm not on the road. So that was Jessica Simpson's logic of becoming a news correspondent.
Nowadays, there's a thing called social media.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have to take a job at a news station. So all these people wouldn't have the joy of working with Jessica Simpson. You know, the intro says there's going to be so much more to her. They wouldn't know.
No, there really wasn't. There wasn't a lot to her. You know, watching it on a date night, it gave you kind of a different perspective, and it was, for me, it's like, oh well, these jokes are funny. All of her ditzy stuff is funny because that's what you would kind of want to see from her at the time. But the other side of the couch was, gosh, she just seems so stupid. This must be so embarrassing. I'm like, it's kind of the point of the character. That's what you got to kind of try to get behind.
Yeah, because that whole time period is newlyweds.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're watching Jessica at the time, everything makes sense. This is the same period as chicken or tuna.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I made this mental note. Like, there's this part where it's like, all right, she's smoking hot, and she doesn't need makeup to be pretty on camera.
Well, she's been on a plane for 6 hours. I mean, she doesn't need anything.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess I could. I can't improve on that.
But then she's also like, I gotta go potty. It's like, well, where is she mentally?
I do really have to go potty. Been holding it for like an hour.
Yeah, it's almost like you're, I don't know, mentally like a third grader, second grader. I don't know, man.
So then we have to meet the crew, and I think out of all the casts that we watched today, this was probably my favorite ensemble. How about you?
I thought it was good. I really liked the one editor that was just like super smitten with her.
You know how I said she was a complete airhead?
Yeah, big fat you dumb.
I love her. She's my wife.
I like see, it's hard for me to recall their names because it's been like 2-3 days since I watched this, but.
So our main girl was Holly. Holly was the jealous actual news reporter.
Okay,
then
yep.
The guy who followed her around and was like, huh, you're referring to my future wife. That's Joe. And I kept being like, he's what the internet would call cucked, because there is no wrong that any of these girls can do, but please like him. Please pay attention to him.
Yep.
Then we have our new executive producer, who's played by Brian Callen, who's the Brian Miller in The Goldbergs. He's a stand-up comedian, and he is the one who offered her the job.
I'm Dan Hall, the executive producer. If there is anything I can get you, please let me know.
Actually, I could really use a toothbrush. My breath stinks like a cow patty.
Tina!
It's Amanda. I know. Toothbrush.
He's not Bob, right? Because she kept trying to toss it to Bob. He's like, I'm not Bob.
No, Bob was a guy named Brett, and he is the news anchor, and boy, he takes the news very serious. He takes himself very serious.
You know how I feel about talking to celebrities and movie stars. I've interviewed presidents, heads of state, the greatest thinkers of our time.
Standard sitcom cliche, but hot chick can call him whatever she wants to call him.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Brett. I realize this is a complete waste of your talent, but it is our lead story. I could get someone.
It's okay, this one time.
Yeah, I thought his character was probably one of the most fun on the show. I thought because he tried to play it so straight, but he couldn't resist Jessica Simpson.
One of the funniest lines to me was when she's like, I already had 2 breakfasts.
Yeah.
Can I get you something to eat? No, thanks. I already had 2 breakfasts on the plane. Did she just say breakfasts?
No, that was the thing with the show you're like, look, I could have totally seen this. I don't know if it necessarily on like broadcast TV, but I could totally, if streaming were a thing back then, this would totally be one that you could just, sit there for half of a day and watch season 1 and 2 and get some good laughs out of it. You know what I mean?
Like I was saying, it fell into, remember when MTV did Together, the series?
Yep.
Or, it had sort of that sort of TGIF, like everyone's at an 11 in their personalities and everything is a joke. And as I researched it, I'm like, oh my God, they actually put a lot of effort into this show. There were writers for like Spin City and Frasier and Third Rock from the Sun all involved to make this thing. They really wanted this thing to work.
Well, I mean, of course, you would never go into, shooting a pilot hoping, man, I really hope nobody, enjoys this.
Now, I first joked that I'm like, ooh, I don't know if this would go today. The guy who's handling her lapel mic is ready to kill somebody.
Yep.
When he tries to interrupt, they're like, can you mic her up? And he's like, and they're like, hey, can you help us? Get off! Back off!
Back off! I got this.
You want me to do it?
You get away.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Now,
that was funny.
I'm sorry. I'll try not to.
It's okay. I'm used to getting poked with stuff.
So how did you feel about our main character, Holly?
I liked Holly because Holly was the complete opposite of Jessica Simpson. And yes, I'm going to refer to her in her full name this entire show. The exact opposite of her. They definitely don't get off on the right foot. I really like the advice Jessica Simpson tries to give her to attract guys, and that's just to be quiet.
Well, I'm articulating a point of view.
Yeah, stop.
Just let guys talk to you.
There's just like this whole like dialogue between them that I actually thought was really funny. You got the brilliant brunette and you got the dumb blonde, which is just like a tradition as old as time, So yeah, they had a really good back and forth, and I thought her character was the perfect, antithesis of Jessica Simpson.
Yeah, and I think like for a good sitcom, there's always got to be like some character traits that they can continually do as comedy. So it's like for her, what do you know about her? Well, she's terrible at flirting, so that could be a ton of funny situations in the future if this was picked up.
I mean, while we were out there, I didn't know how it was going to turn out, but you had a vision.
But what I also kind of found was happening was, have you ever seen like a sitcom where you're supposed to sympathize with the main character, but then when you step back and think about it, you're like, they kind of suck, or I don't actually think that they deserve whatever is happening on the show, like How I Met Your Mother. Ted doesn't really deserve a life. Ted sucks most of the time.
He kind of does.
I'm not rooting for Ted. And there's a lot of shows like that. With Holly, for a while, I was like, you know what? Everything that's happening to you right now, Holly, you deserve it.
It's your own fault kind of thing, right?
So then we have to see Jessica at work. And that led to a lot of comedy as she is a on-field reporter. Jeff, what happened?
It was just a lot of just like slapstick kind of stuff. Honestly, they sent her out. She's going to discover what the internet is and how it actually works. And they have all these like vignettes set up, and she's trying to like, crouch down in 4-inch heels. And dude, there was just a lot of funny stuff in those, where they would actually, punch it into your like camcorder, right? Mm-hmm. Of what's being captured by the film crew. And a lot of that stuff, there was just like a couple few minutes where it was just funny, just blurbs and jokes and her falling over and just trying to explain to us exactly what the internet is and how it works.
I'm Jessica Simpson, and I'm talking to people today about the internet, the computer internet. You don't have to say computer. Then how will they know?
I mean, in 2004... she has the internet specifically on her computer.
Yeah.
That was a great line in there. The other one I didn't understand.
No, it was inside her computer, the internet.
Yes.
And that was really funny.
I got this new computer, and it has the internet inside.
You do realize the internet is not inside the computer.
No, on mine it is.
Just her.
Yeah.
The other thing I didn't quite understand, and I kind of wonder, what is the backstory here? Remember when Jessica goes, posing for Maxim is very hard. You don't know what it's like to just be squatting for 4 hours in heels. And then Holly's like, actually, I do. And then she listens, she's like traumatized. And then they just, next scene.
Have you ever squatted in 4-inch heels? No. Once. I don't want to talk about it.
Well, that was a really, funny joke because that was something that I thought they could pay off in like a later episode, because clearly this was a time in her life that she is the least proud of. And it would be so funny to actually see like a flashback of when it happened, because she was probably out in the street, peeing somewhere in the street, not proud of herself. It was a bad night. Like there's a lot of room for good jokes there. You know what I mean?
Now, what we found is everybody at the station, well, they realized Jessica, her and Holly are just not working well together. And Joe asks, hey, Holly, if this was another person who wasn't pretty, would you do the same mean girl thing you're doing right now? Or would you make her look good in editing?
You're not giving her a chance. I bet if she wasn't some smoking hot babe, that you would just cut all this together and make it work, wouldn't you?
I don't know. Maybe.
And I know as an editor, and Jeff can attest, what do?
You make them look as great as possible.
You damn Skippy. And that's what she does, because she is a pro. She actually had a bubbly personality, did well at this report, and fine. You know what? Begrudging respect.
I just wanted to tell you that I thought your segment tonight was fun. Fun. All right.
Fun's probably as good as it gets for someone who didn't work her ass off to get here.
No, wait. Not fun. Good. I thought it was good.
Now, what hijinks do you think they could get into in the future?
That's what I was wondering. I was like, there's obviously, like, right off the bat, you get a dynamic between these two characters, and you're like, okay, they could get closer, they could fall apart, maybe, Jessica Simpson, accidentally dates a boy that she's interested in, and that brings friction between them.
Or Joe, because without glasses, Joe has beautiful eyes.
He does. He has beautiful eyes.
But I'm going to remember you as the guy with the pretty eyes.
Oh, really? Pretty eyes.
So he's never
like,
going to
because
wear glasses
I can't
again?
see anything. I thought that was really funny. And I was like, yep, I can attest to that. So can Joe.
Oh, God, there's so many times where it's like, please don't film me with glasses on. I want to look better, even though you're not supposed to be vain like that.
No, never.
The glasses are coming off if Jessica Simpson's around. Jessica Simpson.
Jessica Simpson. And then, wait, didn't she say at one point, if you can find the clip, her boyfriend's name was Rick?
Well, I do have a boyfriend, Vic.
Of course you do.
Yes.
And I was like, okay.
And Rick owns a truck. And then the news reporter's all like, well, I own a Corvette or something like that. And then at the end, when they go all hang out as a gang down at the club, he shows up like, I bought a truck.
Yeah, he wants to. Yeah, Bob. He really wanted to impress her.
So I was thinking, you're new in the area. Maybe you need a ride home.
No thanks, but that's sweet. I'll see you tomorrow.
But I got a new truck.
Dude, honestly, I would have liked to have seen more episodes of him just trying to change himself to win her over. I thought that was a funny kind of part of the show for me anyway.
Unfortunately, ABC passed on this show and it didn't go to series. Jessica went back on tour and I think everything worked out fine for her. She not only made tons of money through reality and music, but she also has a huge clothing line, right? So
just to be sure, all this stuff happened after her reality show with Nick?
During it.
Okay. So you got to think, why were people just like burnt out on her, or they only wanted to see her in a reality show kind of way? They tried to take that character that she played, quote unquote, on the reality show and bring it into a sitcom form. Did it just not work out? Because I got to sit here and say, out of the four, that was probably, I think, from start to end, that may have been my favorite one of the bunch.
I'm going to completely agree with you. This actually was my favorite out of all of them. I put this at like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
I thought it was really stupid fun. And my thoughts is that these pilots, they don't go out to the mass public. So it's like this focus group and critics, and that's not where Jessica wins people over.
No way.
I think the target fan base who liked Jessica Simpson at the time and followed what she was doing would have eaten the show up.
And then also think how many people watched her reality show that didn't like her, but it was kind of like a guilty thing. Like, I know a lot of people watch The Bachelor and they'll crap on it nonstop, but every, Tuesday, Wednesday, whenever it's on, they're glued to their TV. It's almost like hate watching.
That's true. And speaking of The Bachelor, spoilers, later on, we're going to meet a side character whose love life is so bad that she spent her entire evening alone watching The Bachelor.
Watching The Bachelor. And that is our segue into our next episode?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Why not?
Let's go
We're
with
going
it,
to talk
man.
about In the Game. In the Game was Jennifer Love Hewitt and Ed O'Neill.
So she plays a character named Riley, and she's essentially a producer for ESPN. So she is kind of the just directing the shots, setting up the microphones, making sure, what is supposed to get said. And that's how we're first introduced to her. She's kind of backstage talking to this bubblegum ditzy blonde reporter, coincidentally.
Named Brandy.
Brandy,
Jeff's
right?
favorite name in the world.
Yep, and she has to go in there and talk to LeVar Arrington, or actually she's waiting for him to come out. But she kind of has her own motive. She doesn't really want to do what the producer wants her to do, and that's a problem for Riley, of course.
Riley, tell her this is not The View.
Just remember how to ask him how he could possibly line up offsides on the last play, costing his team the game.
I have my questions lined up.
I can't hear another softball interview.
She wants to find out why LeVar Arrington canceled an interview on her.
No, it was why did he line up offsides?
Well, he canceled the interview because he doesn't want to talk about why he lined up offsides.
Okay, you're right.
And what I loved about it was it's so from that time period. So she's like, you know that Mark Bolger does blank and blank when he's trying to signal. You could have strip sacked him. And I'm like, oh, damn, Riley, you just gave away Mark Bolger's career, probably why he fell off after 3 seasons.
No.
I was looking at Mark Bolger's hands, and I lost where I was out on the field. It happened.
All right, next time, watch his left knee, because he always points it towards the side he's gonna throw to.
Yeah? Wow.
But no, I thought that was so cool because obviously whenever there's, a very attractive woman, we'll say, that's into sports or pro wrestling, it's such a rare thing. So you're like, wait a minute, are two of my most favorite things in the world clashing together right now?
If you count Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah, totally. So it was just like, wow, this is cool. And she seemed like a pretty damn cool mom too.
Yeah, we do find out that she has a son, Michael. Now, what I also remember from this time period is when it kicked off, I'm like, oh God, you remember the mornings where all you would do is turn on SportsCenter, catch it 45 minutes in and be like, well, I don't know what happened in the first 45 minutes, but it replays 5 times. So
yeah,
all I'm going to hear in the background all day is SportsCenter before they ruined it.
Da-da-da, da-da-da.
And then you have Ed O'Neill's character.
Ed O'Neill is brilliant in this show. He's usually great in everything he does.
Dear God, would somebody please put a bullet in my head?
And it's just his comedic timing and his mannerisms and his delivery. To me, I was like, you could see that he was kind of leaps and bounds ahead of even the rest of the cast. I was like, dude, he is perfect for this role, and he could really be he could kind of be that person that could grab you and say, wow, the show's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, it's like everyone's in there trying to hit the ball, and he's just in there like, all right, I have to convey that I'm an upset boss. She's interrupting my time, and I want her out of here. And he just says the line, boom, home run. Funniest line happening here. He plays agitated so well.
Yeah, he
Obviously,
does.
From Married with Children or Little Giants.
Oh, so good. Yeah, and there was one, he's like, I could have retired last year. I could have been sitting on the island sipping martinis, but instead I'm here with you idiots. And it was just good stuff, man. I thought he was a real highlight. And having a guy with a resume like that, and then how popular Jennifer Love Hewitt was at the time, and then you have the whole ESPN SportsCenter was super popular then. We watched it all the time.
And Kenny Mayne shows up, and Stuart Scott is there.
It was this was a recipe for success. Now, what I learned watching the show is it jumped off great. And then it slowly started to lose everything that it was. And then by the end, it kind of wasn't even the same show. Is that just me?
No, I think you're right. Because at first I'm like, ooh, I like all the sports angle. I like her being like the outsider, I guess you'd say, the girl in it. But even then, there was like, you already know that there is a girl reporter.
Ask him about lining up off sides. It's what every fan wants to know.
Could you give me a coffee?
Riley.
Yeah.
But she's a different type who does bubblegum interviews, as they call it. And she goes in there and she's all like, I want answers. I want to know why you did this incorrectly. And
hey, sweetie.
Walks in there with her cameraman, who's actually an interesting side character because he's kind of like...
He was pretty funny.
When he confronts the guy TJ later on, he's like, you can't do anything left to me. I don't make good decisions. Fire me, don't fire me, who cares? And he's like...
And then he's like, back off.
You really think it's a good career move to talk to me like that?
Yeah, take a look at me, bro. You really think I practice any of the 7 habits of highly successful people? Really? Beat it, bro.
Then there's another scene where he pops out of the friggin' toilet stall out of nowhere.
He's just giving the thumbs up.
She's gonna be awesome!
And then, when she bursts into the locker room to confront LeVar Arrington, she walks by some guy's freaking penis.
Yep.
And she's like, then they're like, the two of them are joking about it, and he's like, yo, and she's like, put a towel on.
Yep.
You know what this is?
Yeah, it looks like a penis, only smaller.
Oh yeah, face, baby!
But I think this is one of those shows that probably had, I think, the longest legs. Like, there was so many more stories you could have done in the sports world, and her doing ESPN-like things.
Yeah, and then you think there could have just been endless, guest stars. It could have been personalities from ESPN. It could have been football players, basketball players, you name it. It could have been anybody, and they could have kind of brought their own charisma to the show. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This one had a lot of legs. It had a great premise. It just kind of lost itself by the end of the episode, and it made me think this isn't the show that I thought it would be or what it started out to be.
Unless being in the game means you're in the game of sports, but you're in the game of learning what it's like to be a single mom.
Yep.
Which is kind of what the second act happens, because once she confronts LeVar Arrington, the rant goes live. She's 04 viral.
And it was awesome.
And her son sees it, and then it cuts back to the house, and you start seeing who she is. She loves sports so much, she's dressed like a referee in her spare time. And then you meet the son, who I didn't think was a good actor at all. I don't want to...
He wasn't that great, no. But I think the actress that stole that whole scene was probably her roommate, because she was just so miserable and desperate. And I think, for a lot of people, they could really get behind that and say, you know what? I definitely feel like that sometimes. I relate with this character. I thought there was so much more she could have done as well.
How was your date last night?
It was amazing. He brought me flowers, then he took me to this sweet little bistro, and then it ended with a carriage ride in the park.
Really?
No, that was an episode of The Bachelor.
Yeah.
And we find out she's Michael's teacher.
Yeah.
So that's got to be tough. Like, your kid's teacher, the kid has to go home and be like, oh crap, my teacher's there because she's my mom's best friend.
Yep.
So she had a bad dating life, and as we mentioned earlier, she had a date that evening, but the date didn't go well, and by 20 minutes in, she spent the rest of the night alone watching The Bachelor.
Yep. And she certainly did.
Another instance of this joke probably wouldn't play today. Do you remember what was said about the type of people the best friend tried to meet out on the dating scene?
Yeah, there was some sort of joke about how he ended up being a she or something like that, but then she got excited again when he thought that he called. I don't know if I'm using the right pronouns here or whatever, but
she said, well, I've tried the dating scene. I did the cooking classes to meet people, but all I met were 5 gay guys, 3 soon-to-be gay guys, 2 lesbians and one that got very handsy named Chad.
I tried the What's Cooking Good Looking cooking class, the Getting to I Do Before He Knows It extension course.
Wait, you must have met someone.
Yeah. 8 gay guys, 5 soon-to-be gay guys, and a handsy lesbian named Chad.
And then she goes, wait, she called? That was hella funny. I liked that. I thought that was good comedy.
You know, you had a message from a Chad.
She called?
Did you catch Kenny Mayne doing his Kenny Mayne style comedy? He comes out and he's like, well, I'm working on a story about he hate me.
Yep.
So anyways, you see my he hate me story, and a lot of people are talking to Emmy, I heard. Kenny, can we be honest? Pretty much just you were talking to him.
And then he's like, and then T.O., he just went to Philadelphia. What could T.O. become? You don't remember?
I don't remember the punchline.
T.O. could become Amish.
Oh, yeah, okay, yep.
I mean, Terrell Owens is with the Eagles, so he lives in Pennsylvania, so now he's Amish, and his name is Ye Hate Thee. What do you think?
You know how long that would take him to get his popcorn ready?
A long time.
So then we meet Riley's coworker, TJ. Can you tell us a little about TJ?
TJ is he's kind of like a scummy reporter. He thinks he's a ladies' man. We don't know if he actually is or not. We just know that when Riley pretended to come on to him, that he went with it so fast, and she was like, that was way too easy.
And then she does it again, and then a third time, and she's like, I can't believe you fell for my sexy talk. And I was kind of like,
Why don't we say your apartment, bottle of wine, I'll go down and out, see if you can go long. How does that sound?
Sounds like I need to cancel my other plans for this evening.
You are way too easy.
Yeah, I probably would have too. But it was great because she did it to him, and he needed to be kind of taken down a notch. And that right there could have been a cool, back and forth throughout the series. Her kind of like checking his ego at the door. You know what I mean?
Right. Do you think there's any romantic chemistry? Because they tried to play it up like maybe he could be, maybe he has a chance at some point if he changed a little. Or do you just think he's, I don't know, a wannabe ladies man?
I think he's a wannabe.
He's got a story about a redhead.
Yeah, I think he's a wannabe ladies man for sure. But that's not to say that some sort of romance could, down the line just mistakenly happen between the two of them, and neither of them can believe it. That would have been good TV. Like, there was a lot of good seeds planted in this pilot where you're like, oh, I could have seen it go in this direction, or these two characters could have went in that direction. But unfortunately, I'll never know. You'll never know. Nobody will ever know, because this is a pilot that never got off the ground.
The game got canceled. So then we get to more football talk, and Riley has to beg for her job back. And she confronts Al Bundy in the bathroom, and all he wants to do is go to the bathroom and get his business done, read his biggins.
Yep.
And she's like, no, you got to understand, I love football, and I don't care what Brandy's saying. And what does he say that Brandy was trying to do?
Brandy had been trying to get her fired for a long time, not just since she came on as an anchor, but trying to get her fired for a long time.
Why would I fire you?
Well, because Brandy asked you to fire me.
She's been asking me to fire you ever since you started with her. Never liked you.
Never?
Well, no, never.
And because of that, Riley is convinced that, fine, I'll take a role as an on-camera anchor or a reporter, because that rant, everybody realized the angry girl. That's who they want, right?
Yeah, it was great because it was probably what a lot of fans were thinking, at the time. But then, of course, Brandy tries to tell her, what she should do, and then just plants these weird seeds in her head like, hey, what are you going to do with your hands? And so she starts to overthink what she's going to do with her hands, and there's a lot of funny comedy there with her and Tom Brady.
I felt so bad for Riley because I'm like, oh God, that's exactly what happens. Like, you don't want to see the outtakes on some of the stuff, or when you're recording in front of the camera, because then you're like, what am I doing this for? Or, hey man.
Oh yeah, there's so many things. And then she gets sent to hair and makeup, And then it turns out Brandy was in on it and had the hair and makeup team do this horrendous look to her on purpose, where she has on this like terrible, I don't know, like a business like skirt suit, and she has this huge beehive
She looks like
hair.
she's like a power broker.
Yeah, and not the girl that busted into the locker room and won the hearts of America.
This is the tough girl?
What?
What the hell they do to you? You look like an astronaut's wife.
You said to go to hair and makeup. This is hair and makeup.
Attention, somebody call Extreme Makeover. There's been a horrible accident.
Nah, man, she's just a slob. And you mentioned a cameo from Tom freaking Brady, and he really actually doesn't do that much, does he?
No, I think he may have said like 4 or 5 words. That was it. I think he was in 2 different scenes because if I remember correctly, he ends up going to Riley's son's school for show and tell.
I used to go to all the practices.
Tom, I'm not gonna cry, Tom. I am not gonna cry. I am.
Right?
Yes, as we have like this subplot of Riley's son has to do like a school report, and the other classmates have a firefighter speaking.
Right.
So he's like, oh, that's not cool. I'm just talking about a rock. So he doesn't want to do it. And the teacher even rats him out because there's a scene at a restaurant where she's celebrating her new job with a child. And this poor guy comes up hitting on her, and he's actually pretty chill. And the son's like, no, get lost.
Get
Beat
lost.
It.
Yeah.
We're eating.
I will say between the, mother and son dynamic, which I didn't love, but in the very end of it, when he kicks out Tom Brady and brings his mom in to, show her off to the class because she's his real hero. If you can't get behind that, like there's something wrong with you. So I thought that was very heartwarming.
You just, aww.
Yeah,
and
that was the big,
there and she's like, the reason I want to do this job is because I love football ever since watching with my father or grandfather or something like that.
Yep.
When did you start liking football?
Well, when I was 4. My dad, your grandpa, was a football coach.
And then it's like, okay, because every once in a while they brought it back to football. Like the little kid earlier, it goes, oh, they suck like the Jets.
Yep.
Quitters?
Quitters.
Wait, you mean like the Jets?
Yep. Exactly like the Jets.
And I'm like, oh, burr.
Yeah, because it's like, screw the Jets.
I mean, there's most years where they suck like the Jets doesn't get dated. So finally, we get this part where Tom Brady is the practice interview because TJ used his connections to set up this interview because he wants to look like a good guy. He also allows himself to be interviewed. Before the football players showed up, he was going to be the one interviewed by Riley's son.
Yep.
And then during this, what happens? Poor Riley gets in her own head. And Tom Brady is even like, cross your legs.
Tom
your legs
Brady
are uncrossed.
Is trying to give her advice on how to interview him, and he's the practice subject. So she's like leaning in and doing these weird things with her hands, and she's like got her legs wide open or not crossed the right way.
When you go into the no huddle.
Cut, Riley. Cross your legs. You're a lady, not a lumberjack.
When you
Cut. Legs crossed. You're doing that lumberjack.
Very awkward body language for sure. And Tom's trying to kind of help coach her through it.
Did you find it a little weird? Like, just how it would work in the real world. In 2004, Tom's already got 2 Super Bowls.
Right.
Would he really sit through somebody's practice interview?
No, not unless he was like great friends with Ed O'Neill's character, right? What was his name again?
Yeah. Buzz. His name was Buzz.
Of course it was. So maybe they were like great pals from college. I don't know.
Well, we did find out that Buzz did try out for the Steelers, and fear kept him from trying again the next year when he was cut.
Yeah, because the first year it was his knee, so we kind of chalked it up. Yeah, I could have had my run in the pros, but my knees gave out, which is the common story. And then you find out he's like, no, I was too scared because the next year I was 100% healed, but I didn't go back. I was afraid. And that was the lesson he was trying to teach Riley throughout this process and throughout this pilot.
As opposed to the other lesson where he goes, "Are you guys smoking the crack?"
Are you smoking the crack?
Which I think was probably the best line from the episode, because it was just like, wow. Somebody was trying to be edgy at that time period.
Yeah.
Overall, I thought In the Game was pretty solid, and I actually think this one probably had the longest legs if it went to a series.
It was promising. It had a lot of promise. Again, the tough part for me was the show wasn't what it presented itself as in the beginning, which is fine because it can be a broader dynamic than just one thing. So I would have liked to have seen where this show would have gone, and if I would have originally caught the first pilot, I probably would have been so enthralled with all the like behind the scenes broadcasting and ESPN stuff that I would have been, okay, this is something that I kind of want to watch.
At the time period, ESPN guys were the coolest. And when she blows up and yells at everybody like, "Will you let me take a phone call from my son? I'm tired of being dolled up. You're getting on my nerves. I can't do anything right." I'm like, sounds like Chris Berman ranting right now.
Yep.
You people have been busting my ass all morning. And God forbid I actually take one break to talk to my 6-year-old son who calls me every day after lunch just to check in. And you know what? Maybe that's not what professional reporters do, but that is what this one is going to do because my son always comes first.
When I'm doing TV and I got 18, God damn it. Can't everybody stop for 10 minutes? I mean, everybody seems that that's the only, everybody can we stick, Jesus Christ.
So I think In the Game reminds me of those sitcoms that like, I don't remember laughing at all during this episode, but I was very amused all the way through.
Yeah, there wasn't, I mean, I think there was one line that I randomly busted out like laughing hard. It was, "Hey, thanks for bringing him to school in the morning." She's like, "Well, I'm his teacher." and that, like, I just didn't see that coming. So I like busted out laughing hard on that one. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. There was a lot of just amusement where after you watched it, you were kind of like, that was fun.
I could watch 6 of these in a row and probably not remember anything that specific.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be mad that I watched 6 in a row.
Because it's all about the way it left you feeling after the fact, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I can't say the same for our next show, Foster Hall with Macaulay Culkin.
Woo!
Woo!
Man.
So I hope those warm feelings lasted, because when we get to Foster Hall, well, it wasn't so warm and cozy, was it?
I am growing up, Clark. I'm becoming normal. I'm a wife and a homeowner.
Next up, menopause.
Right, but
not like this. Not at all. Okay, there isn't a song that you have in your back pocket that you can bust out to embarrass Chrissy. I don't have one to embarrass Alicia. I don't know, man. To me, it was just like, it was almost kind of raunchy for the sake of being raunchy.
Yes, it's like it felt like one of those Fox sitcoms from the time period, and it was like, we want to bust each other's chops like that 70s show. But at the heart of that 70s show, or Scrubs, or any show where people insult each other, or even My Name is Earl, like,
right,
there's a heart to it. And like at the end of the day, you're like, well, they're still friends, they're still family, they still do nice things for each other. Foster Hall, Peggy and Clark Hall are terrible.
Terrible human beings.
And I really, really wanted to like this one because it's like, there's Macaulay Culkin in a sitcom. This is Richie Rich. It's freaking Kevin McAllister. It's
I
the
know.
kid from Uncle
I went
Buck.
into this one with the highest hopes. I wanted to be angry in the end. Like, are you kidding me? Why would some network not pick up this show? This is a great idea, great premise. It's Macaulay Culkin's in the show. This is going to be a big comeback for him. But literally like 10 minutes in, I was like, dude, I can see why this was not picked up. Like, they're like, nope, we don't need episode 2. No, thank you. Goodbye.
It felt like when you walk in on 2 people arguing and you're so uncomfortable and you're like, you suck. And I understand you're part of the argument, but you're wrong.
Yeah.
She's wrong. This guy is an idiot. Everyone here is awful. I want to leave.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was some parts in it to where I would laugh, but I think it was because I don't even I think he was some like Russian guy that was sitting on the couch during the party. I thought he kind of stole that whole scene.
He calls them action figures. Oh, there's a whole lot of action that day.
Action figures.
Yes, the Italian guy, because the whole point of the party, as we find out, is Busy Phillips' character, Peggy.
Who was in prison, by the way.
Yes. So you're like, who's the worst one? Well, I guess the prison one, but Jesus, maybe this guy just avoided it out of luck and not just because he's a better dude. Yeah. So she wants to get her old job back at a restaurant, which, I mean, unless she was making a ton of money, that's not really high, lofty goals, is it?
No, it's not. And so who was Foster and who was Hall? And why can I never remember the name of the show?
So Foster Hall is Peggy and Clark Hall.
Okay.
Okay. They're foster children, as we find out through this credits.
Ah, okay. Right, yep.
Initially, they're dropped off at the steps of an orphanage with a bunch of nuns.
In the spring of 1979, twin infants Peggy and Clark Hall were found on the steps of St. Margaret's of Scotland Orphanage. At the age of 4, the twins were placed in the foster care of a childless couple.
Then you find out, well, when they were 4, they got sent off to their first home. And then these people send them right back because they can't deal with them.
Nope.
And they're like, these poor children. And then they show this clip, and like Peggy, as a little girl, is beating her stepmother with a 2x4.
Over the next 12 years, 7 more families would fall in love with the spirited children.
She was.
Whoa! And then we find out, well, 7 other orphanages tried to, 7 other foster parents tried. So, yeah, what, like, are they demon children? What are they? Did you kind of get that feeling like these are, I don't know, they're going to reveal like they're the children of the devil or...
Dude, I don't know. They just seemed like they were impossible. I don't know. I really wanted to like it, but the whole time I was like, these characters kind of suck. They're kind of, and you can bleep this, they're kind of people. It's kind of, I don't know.
Even as
it
children,
seemed,
they're pretty because
and
after he
it
beats
seemed
her
like,
with a 2x4, they pushed down some furniture down a flight of stairs, and it's like, why'd they get rid of them? I don't know. Maybe people don't want their furniture going flying down the steps.
Yeah. I couldn't get into this one. I watched it all the way through, of course. But I was just so bummed out. I was so disappointed. And I've even seen that girl in other stuff, and she's like a decent actress. So I don't know if it was just, what's that?
Cougar Town.
Okay. So I don't know if it was just bad writing or bad execution. But it seemed like it was crude just for the sake of being crude and raunchy for the same reasons or for the wrong reasons.
You know, it recently dawned on me that I've wasted the better part of my life. Do you know what I've wasted it on? Promiscuous sex.
It was almost meant to try to just offend you to try to get a reaction, but it was like, the attempts kind of came up short and you were kind of left with a bad taste.
It was the bad kind of offensive because it's like if the joke's funny, you can always just be like, yo, it's a joke. It's funny. Get sense of humor. With this one, you're kind of like, you're off on your own, buddy. So we start off the show and you find out the sister is slutty. And the brother is kind of a pervert. They're arresting him. He's butt-ass naked.
Yep, and she's sleeping with her psychiatrist, and now they're married.
At the age of 23, Peg was ordered to undergo mandatory therapy with Dr. Jack Cafferty. Their professional relationship took an unexpected turn. 6 months later, Jack and Peg married.
But then you're like, all right, so we just introduced a third guy in this, and we already know that he's skeezy, totally doesn't treat his job serious, and is just as bad as the rest of them, just with a little bit more white collarness to him. His name was Jack.
I don't know. The characters kind of sucked. The premise, I didn't really even understand what was happening. I would have rather of the psychiatrist not had been involved, and it could have just been 2 like a brother and a sister, and they're in their 20s, and they're all about practical jokes. They could have each had their own lives, maybe they lived in the same town, maybe they didn't. But when they got together for the holidays, they always liked to play practical jokes on each other, and maybe one went too far. That would have made more sense rather than sandwiching them two with a psychiatrist, and then she's trying to get a job back. But then
it's like she and him don't get along, but he also Clark lives with them.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, so she's basically trying to turn her life around, but then you find out, all right, she has to go see her parole officer. And what's she been arrested for? Well, she sold bootleg cosmetics. Okay, that's funny. Oh, and she also stole dogs. I don't like her as much.
2 days after you bought that house, you were arrested for selling stolen cosmetics?
Actually, that was the last time. This time it was for stealing a puppy. See? Terrier? It's right there.
So then we meet the parole lady, and what do we find out about her?
Well, we find out that she's been sleeping with Macaulay Culkin.
God, you're just like your brother.
You know my brother?
He never mentioned me?
Why, though? Like, that was the whole point I was trying to figure out is, why is she smitten with this guy?
For no reason. For no reason. I don't understand. I don't know, man. I left watching the show kind of just like scratching my head like, what the hell just happened?
So you said your girlfriend really liked this one the best out of the bunch?
Yeah, she did, and I was blown the hell away because she loves kind of, like dry sense of humor and just kind of like, kind of jokes that go there. But to me, they all kind of...
She liked the joke about rough sex in their household and that she was slapping her husband.
Is that too rough on you?
Oh, no, I enjoyed it. I've never had just released from prison sex.
If you want, I could violate my parole. We could have it again in a couple of years.
I think I'd rather have you home.
I think, I don't know, she was into the show. I go, I think this is the one that I don't really care for. She goes, well, this is the one that I like the best, which is Us to a T. No matter what it is, it's always the opposite side of the spectrum. But
maybe if this show had a monkey in it.
If it did, it would have been awesome. It really would have been awesome. But to me, it's like all the humor tried to go there, but it all fell flat.
What set the siblings off in this episode? We cut in as the newly engaged couple who finally gets a chance to be normal, unpack.
Yep.
She looks over and she's like, hey, that box is open. What was Clark doing in this household?
Yeah, well, Clark came in and I don't even remember the dude's name, but lied to him and said he was trying to find something to send to her or whatever. But essentially, he stole a picture that she had stashed for blackmail, which was him sitting on the toilet playing with dolls. And I was like,
action figures.
Right. And I thought, well, that's kind of funny, But the way that it was brought up and brought out, it was kind of like, I don't know, all this stuff. I don't know if it's going over my head or if it's not just hitting the mark.
Now, the one thing that I was like, oh boy, this is not hitting the mark. And I don't even know how it made it on the air back then, if they were trying to get on the air. When he goes, how was prison? Did they rape you?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just throwing out jokes about rape. Obviously, you can't
early and often.
Obviously, you can't look back at the, any time frame and try to hold it to whatever standards people have in their minds in 2021. But it was like, even for then, it's like, that's just not funny. Just do something funny. I don't know, man.
So I wasn't. They rape you?
Hard nothing.
So then we find out from that point is that, well, she had a picture to blackmail him with. He had a video of her making out with an ugly dude at a party.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really weird because I'm like, all right, yeah, that's bad. But who is that embarrassing other than her? Because the husband seems fine with it. And then I'm thinking,
wait, he's filming this?
Yeah. Did he record his sister making out? these are really messed up siblings. I don't like them at all.
No, I don't either. They were just weird. They definitely gave you incest vibes. Just for the fact that he would sit there with a camcorder and just film her making out with some dude. I don't know.
And then we find out, like, all right, to get her job back, she wants a housewarming party, but Clark can't come.
No.
And Clark's like, well, I'm a carpenter. Or wait, what was he?
He's a crapenter. He misspelled carpenter wrong on the card. So
It says crapenter. What? It says Clark Hall, expert crapenter.
Crapenter!
yeah.
Very funny. And then we find out he had some other jobs, one of them including shooting porn.
It's sapping my energy.
Sure, it's not the long hours holed up in your apartment watching porn. You think you're old enough to know? I don't just watch.
Yeah, that was weird, man. And it was a lot of these jokes, they were kind of just like slid in nonchalantly, as in like, hey, if you get it, you know, you're cool. But it was like, it's just missing the mark for me.
And then it's like, all right, well, my sister's a slut. Yeah, well, you only have one ball from a carpentry accident. It's like, what did I walk into?
Yeah, I don't know,
You described
man.
it as like very uncomfortable.
Yeah, FYI, slut. I worked construction for 2 summers and did a lot more than hang sheetrock.
Yeah, you punctured your scrotum with a nail gun.
Yeah, it was. Like, watching it was definitely uncomfortable. Maybe that's what they were going for. And for the, you know, kind of people that are into that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those kind of people are into, right?
I hope so. Well, you know, the boss is like, hey, how come you never called me to tell me where you were in the last year? And she's faking it like, I was in Ireland. And the party, well, goes off with some complications. The parole officer shows up, and the parole officer notices Clark's at the party.
Yep, so she's smitten with him. I will say about the party, doubling back to the Italian guy or whatever you said he was, I thought he was really funny. And then I will say a positive thing about this show, believe it or not.
Okay.
So how they built up the picture, they built up the video, they built up the song, right, that he had written about his sister. They had all this blackmail that they used back and forth, and then the big, you know, crescendo at the end of the episode was it all came out. Like, all bets were off. The gloves came off, and they just went at it in the middle of the party in front of everybody. But of course, Clark busts out the song, and he winds up winning in the end.
Piggy, Peggy, fatty clown, loves to pull her panties down. French kiss all the boys and down and pick a piggy nose. Piggy, Peggy, slutty slut, loves it when you smack her butt. Call her names like filthy mutts and beat her with the hose.
What I didn't understand is at this party, all right, so far you got some of Jack's old friends, some people from the restaurant. This isn't a high school. Like, are any of these back and forth barbs doing anything other than hurting each other?
Yeah.
Like, oh, he never lost his virginity. She lost it at 12. Well, she made out with an ugly guy. Well, he plays with action figures on the toilet. Here's a random song, and if I was at that party, I'd be like, what is this random song too? Like, you're a weird guy as well.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, man. It just a lot of the humor missed the mark. The one positive thing I can say about it is that it all kind of tied together in the end. I didn't really care to see any character development, so I can totally understand why a network would have passed on it.
I think the only character development was that at the end, after they attacked each other, the therapist husband is like, well, you guys are both wrong because you feel like she's going to leave you behind. And you want to drag him down to your level, and you guys need each other. And then they turn around and they're like...
And they team up on him.
They're like, you're a pedophile. What?
See, it was like those kind of jokes just for the sake of those kind of jokes. Like, it wasn't a big enough setup for where that style of humor can pay off. They were kind of just tossed out there randomly.
Freak. Pansy, and now you gang up on me. The common enemy.
You try to eliminate anything that threatens your unique, albeit unusual, relationship.
Oh, Clark, do you hear something? Yeah, it kind of sounds like an unlicensed sexual predator trying to shrink a head.
Oh, boy, what would you give this out of 10? Because I said this is a 4. And like, they were trying. There was a lot of jokes thrown out there. And at times, it's like, well, I mean, it's Macaulay still.
Right. I was rooting for it. I had the highest hopes for this show out of all the 4 that that you had me watch that night. But I was probably the most disappointed by this one. So I'd probably say I'd give it around a 4 as well.
All right, it's pulling a sufficient last place. Can our favorite Bobcat, Bubsy, make his animated debut and win us over? Tell us a little about Bubsy the Bobcat.
Bubsy? Oh, worse than a truck.
Oh, come on. You know I'm your hero.
You're not.
Well, Bubsy is an interesting story because I remember I bought his game for my Super Nintendo and you were like, nah, dude, trust me. You probably don't want to get this game. It's not very good. I'm like, dude, I think I probably said, what could possibly go wrong? I'm just going to enjoy it.
It looks like Sonic.
Yeah, it looks like this is the answer to Sonic. It's the answer to Mario. It's that kind of thing. And in theory, Bubsy is a cool character. I really like off the bat of the show. We're introduced to him. It had a kicking theme song to open it up. And they were pushing that "what could go wrong" tagline down your throat, which
I think it was said 8 times.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point
and that's even the episode title.
Yeah, and then kids would go to school. Hopefully, what could possibly go wrong? Like that was the whole thing about it.
Come on, Bubsy will be right back. What could possibly go wrong?
I liked the theme song. I liked the intro. I loved Bubsy's voice. I thought the voice work on this show was awesome. Like
amazing.
It was really well done. Yeah.
Did you see the credits? Because
no, I didn't.
Rob Paulsen, the great voice actor who's done Raphael, done Animaniacs, like Rob Paulsen. He's the voice of Bubsy. But then at the end, I'm like, man, all these voices are so familiar. Because you have Jim Cummings, who's like the voice of freaking every Disney character.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, why do I hear Pete from friggin' Goof Troop?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Tress MacNeille, who's like every female voice from that time period. Then you have Pat Fraley, and there's this guy that Pat Fraley voices, kind of a little brain creature. What's his name?
Krang?
Krang.
Dude, that's all right. So one of the other voices on there and characters that kind of won me over was the big vulture. And his voice, his accent, and it was he thought he was so royal, and like I thought that was awesome. And then
I noticed, I made the notes, is that the buzzard,
the vulture, yeah, buzzard.
Well, yeah, he's not a turkey, as one of the jokes in this show.
That's what I was gonna say. They kept calling him a turkey, and that was really funny. I liked his niece and nephew, the armadillo, which is his like roommate, was like the punching bag.
That was great. But I think they were going for like a Jim Backus, Thurston Howell type voice imitation for that buzzard. So the whole time I'm like, oh, this is great. It's kind of got that sort of Gilligan's Island. He's uppity. Like,
yeah,
he's the smart sidekick, even though he's really stupid.
Do we perhaps have something in our mouth? I didn't think so.
Fine. Oh, nuts.
Yeah, and the rat was great. I thought he was so fun.
Armadillo.
Yeah, and he was
the rat,
the buzzard,
creature.
yeah, and he was just so hungry all the time. That's all he could really think about. And they had so many like good jokes about how while they were fooling him, you're so stupid. Your brain is so small.
Because of your incredibly small brain, you have been chosen to receive a free banquet dinner for 50.
Oh my food, comestibles, edibles. Whoa!
And like I thought that was so funny. Dude, I watched this, I'm like, yo, Bubsy is kind of dope. Like I'm into this.
So our cartoon starts off, as you said, with a kickin' theme song, and Bubsy wakes up, and Bubsy does everything I noticed in extremely fast, doesn't savor a moment time. The exclamation on his shirt pretty much is who Bubsy is. He's just like, breakfast, wake up, shoot up, brush my teeth, and Then you go to Bubsy's house, and Bubsy has a basketball court. Bubsy has his own bowling alley.
Yep.
And I think Bubsy in this was a lot like Darkwing Duck, where he's so full of himself. Like, he truly believes the greatness that is Bubsy, that Bubsy can do anything. And everyone else around him's like, Bubsy?
Bubsy?
Oh, please. Do we have to go through this every single morning?
Don't want to be your sidekick.
Yeah, I know. You don't feel worthy. Hey, that happens when people are around me.
Like, the armadillo's on his couch, and he's just like, hey, Armadillo, who's the best guy in the world? Bubsy, right? Bubsy? So what was the quirk that his armadillo sidekick had?
It seemed like he was just always getting hurt, whether it was from, Bubsy's niece and nephew. I thought they were great. He's always worried about getting run over by a truck, because you see on the news all the armadillos. It's like a epidemic. They're all getting run over, and
This poor armadillo has PTSD.
Oh, he does, yeah.
And last year, over 10,000 armadillos were run over by trucks in the state of Texas alone. For many of the poor little fellows, this is the last sound they will ever hear.
The truck!
It was just funny. Like right off the bat, all these different characters had their quirks, and you were just, I don't know. Like, I think off the bat, I was just invested in them, because so quickly it was like, okay, I understand what they are, what they're about, what their quirks are, just so easily.
Yep, because then you're like, all right, well, Bubsy can't be alone, so you got this put upon sidekick, and then you meet his niece and nephew, who are those precocious, hey, let's come over, and Uncle Bubsy's going to entertain us, and then we're going to get in all kinds of trouble, and Bubsy's going to have to figure it out.
Yep.
Then, of like every single one of these commercial-based cartoons, you need a scientist who comes up with inventions that he thinks are going to help the world, but what do?
They hurt the world. They hurt everybody in and around them, and that was the whole premises of this first one. It was, we need to find somebody nuts enough to even try my new invention, and Bubsy sees it on TV.
All I need now is someone extremely brave to test the helmet.
You said you needed someone totally nuts.
Hey, that's me. I'm totally nuts.
And he's like,
brave enough.
I'm brave enough. I'm Bubsy. Everything he does is just like you said, with an exclamation mark. Everything he does, everything he says, everywhere he moves, every mannerism, everything. And that was the whole first episode, is the mad scientist. I think he was some sort of big rat or something.
Well, we had two. We had the scientist, who at first I was like, oh, is he going to be our Baxter Stockman? But then he just turns into one of the crew. His name was Virgil.
Right.
It does not matter what your name is. The only requirement for testing the virtual reality helmet is bravery.
He means you have to be totally nuts.
Well, hey, I can handle it on both counts, guys.
And then Virgil has an assistant, and this girl's like, oh, Bubsy, but she never gets his name right.
No, she's calling him like Bobsy. She's calling him
Bootsy.
Bummy. Yeah, she's calling him Boozy, Boobsy. But in the very end, she finally gets his name right, and then they'd fall in love, right?
Welcome. I am virtual reality, and you must be Bootsy.
That's funky.
Bubsy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think she falls in love with him. So
of course she would. He's Bubsy.
This invention, it has this grand idea is that when you put it on there, what you dream and imagine will come true in like a virtual reality type space.
You just have to blink twice.
So I don't know why this had to be made, but of course, when you have this great of invention, other people are going to want this. So we meet Allie the cat.
Oh, gosh.
Who's an overweight tabby.
And she was so extra.
She really was. And I think she followed, it's a mixture of, you remember Robotnik in the Sonic cartoon? How he had two robot sidekicks that he bossed around?
Yep.
Or even your Shredder, like, oh, you do my bidding because I want to conquer, but I'm not going to get off my ass to do anything.
She had to kind of always feel important.
So she sends out this buzzard and a rat-type creature to go get this device and steal it away.
Now get ready. We're going to dive bomb them.
But what happens?
Bubsy's niece and nephew end up getting a hold of the thing and getting outside and envisioning some sort of like roller coaster, and then the
doesn't that seem kind of irresponsible to like for they're like, oh, Bubsy's here to test out the device, let's go inside, and then once they let it out of their sight, whatever,
they
where'd
just
it go?
steal it. Yeah, they steal it. They envision some sort of coaster. The buzzard and the rat are like flying in and they're swooping down trying to take it, and then they do, and then everybody's envisioning all these different things. And
you
somehow,
can tell it's a cartoon because when they swoop down, don't they like crash and they explode? And you're like, so they're dead?
No, not at all.
Not on this cartoon.
No.
This cartoon only just has Bubsy making jokes that he's about to crap himself.
Oh, I gotta lay off those breakfast burritos.
Bubsy was great. And again, I loved his voice. I loved how he was just so outgoing. And I'm just like watching this. I'm like, this can teach introvert, and I'm going to get deep. This can teach introverted kids that it's okay to be a little outgoing. It's okay to have a little Bubsy in you.
Come on, Arnold. Let's be heroes and save the day. Oh, let's do it, Arnold. Let's take the bull by the horn.
A little outgoing. He said his catchphrase 4 times in 7 minutes, and I wrote down here in my notes, Bubsy never shuts the F up.
Dude, he keeps talking, but it's his show, so it makes perfect sense to me. I love the big coaster thing, and then everybody's putting on the helmet, envisioning something else, and then Bubsy he calls the rat and very easily convinces him to give him the address because he promises him like a 5-course meal that he's gonna deliver. So he gives him the address to where they have the helmet stolen and hidden, and he shows up with his whole crew, and then a whole other like just side of antics breaks out.
I was writing down, I'm like, all right, how does Bubsy afford a bowling alley in his household and like massive ceiling? He can play basketball in his court inside. Oh, he's got a catering business, of course.
Yeah, I'll bring you all the food right now. Just give me your address. Okay. Thank you very much. Your brain is indeed very, very small.
Of course, yeah.
And how stupid do your bad guys have to be that even Bubsy just straight up goes to the camera? Wow, they're really stupid. They're not smart. I'm like, Bubsy just legit just called you out.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Bubsy had a lot of charisma. He had a lot of spunk. He had a lot of, I don't know what I'm actually capable of. Like, he seemed like he was always surprising himself. But then in the end, he would tell you that he's not surprised about it because he's Bubsy.
Well, you know why Bubsy had all the confidence in the world. Every time he talked, he could speak in cliches, and then stock black and white footage would start playing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about these cutaways. Was this part of like the encoder guy that was trying to take credit? Or was this actually how the show aired? Because you see it the first couple of times, you're like, that doesn't fit. What the hell is that? And then it starts happening over and over again. You're like, well, this is just a quirk of Bubsy, but why?
You gotta live on the edge. You gotta go for the gusto. You gotta be a hero for crying out loud.
Because either the animators didn't want to animate, or Bubsy is so cliche that, you know, people around him start imagining stock footage.
Yeah.
I wish I had that power. Now, the other thing I noticed about Bubsy is, besides what could possibly go wrong, you notice he kept talking about humbling his opponent? And all I could think of was the Iron Sheik, and I'm like,
same.
I hope he's not doing the other part of that.
Now, hand that helmet over before I'm forced to humble you. I don't think so.
Okay, that wasn't supposed to be so funny because Iron Sheik wasn't doing that stuff at the time.
He was a punk. I can break his back. Break his back, make him humble, and then his ass.
But I just kept laughing so hard. It's like, why is Bubsy so hell-bent on humbling people? And what exactly does he mean by that? Maybe we can find out.
I don't want to find out.
Yeah,
Bubsy's
you're probably
not wearing
right.
any pants, and neither was the shrew or the buzzard. It was a shrew, by the way.
Shrew, okay.
Because at the end, they kept pointing out, we're not a turkey and a rat, we're a buzzard and a shrew.
Yeah.
And then, well, they're able to recover this device after a kind of a back and forth where it's like, Alley Cat has it, and now she's envisioning being on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yeah, which was an awesome bit.
This week on Lifestyles of the Rich and Furry, we travel to beautiful Las Vegas. 99 spotted a classy Ella Cassandra.
You know, the shrew's like, oh, well, I could use it to imagine food, because that's the only thing about the shrew that we know, besides that he's really stupid.
Yeah.
And then Bubsy, I think, makes some sort of crack about Elvis?
Yeah, I think he did, yeah.
What a rush! I think I saw Elvis.
And I'm like, oh God, another thing about Elvis? Is he going to call the Is Elvis Dead hotline?
Oh gosh.
So honestly, at the end of the day, I kind of really enjoyed this. It was probably something I would have watched when it aired in 1994.
Well,
now I think it's just I think it'd been too much now. Like it would just give you a headache after a certain point.
Well, because we're adults
now. You want it loud and stupid.
Yeah, but when you're kids, you think we watch DuckTales, we watch Sonic, we watch Super Mario, like all that stuff. And I'm looking at this now as an adult, and I'm like, dude, this holds up to all those. Like this was, I thought it was super good.
I don't know if it holds up to some of those, but there's so much garbage cartoons or ones that you watched at the time period that you weren't in love with, but hey, it was on.
Right.
I think this isn't any worse than the rest of them. In fact, out of all the things we watched today, this was the one that gave me the legit laugh.
Yeah.
And it was at the very end where Bubsy, playing the hero, decides this thing is about to blow up. I'm the only one who can handle the device now that it's overloaded. I'm going to put it on my head, and then it explodes, but Bubsy's fine. He's conquered the machine. And then they put it back on there again, and it starts, like, jolting him.
Yeah, he's getting electrocuted.
They're like, oh, what's that doing now? Oh, it's electrocuting him. Oh,
yeah, it was funny, man.
But the thought of our next adventure already has me tingling with excitement.
No, I think the helmet's shorted out. You're probably just being electrocuted.
I knew that. I was just testing you, babe.
And that was the one part I laughed at. So 6.5 out of 10 for Bubsy. My pick's Jessica. I honestly think that was my favorite of the bunch.
It was... Jessica was good. It was, like, surprisingly good. Bubsy, for me, because he gets crapped on so much because the games aren't that great and people just, like, on his character, and I don't really get why. Like, if I could own a Bubsy shirt right now, I would buy it and I would wear it. I really liked the cartoon, so I'm going to give it a tie between Jessica and Bubsy for the sake of the Bubster.
Oh, wow. And if they put that on network TV or even Cartoon Network, you know what they'd say?
What could possibly go wrong?
Come on, snap to him, Mr. Basket Case. It's me, the Prince of Personality, Bubsy.
It was so funny because I'm like, as an adult now, I find myself thinking that all the time. No matter what decision I'm making, it's like, all right, well, what could possibly go wrong?
So this won't be the only time we talk pilots. In fact, I have another 4 or 5 lined up, and there's some interesting stuff. Now, before we go, I have to ask your girlfriend, as she's sitting there watching regular sitcoms, how did she feel about the Bubster?
She kind of zoned out, honestly. She zoned out on Bubsy, which I was kind of disappointed in, I'll be honest.
That's it. You're breaking up.
Yeah, it was at that point. It's like, hey, like, are you not into, like, this is the last one? She's like, oh no, it's fine. But I don't know that she was ever like a cartoon watcher as a kid, or I don't know. And she had no idea who the hell Bubsy was, to be honest. She knows Mario. That's it. You know what I mean? So yeah, she wasn't into Bubsy. She didn't really get it. But for some reason, she just liked the Foster and Hall. I don't understand why.
Foster Hall. They're not Foster and Hall. They're not a brother
They're
and
not
sister.
Hall and Oates.
They're foster children whose last name were Hall.
Foster and Hall, the band. It's a band.
Private eyes are not going to be watching that show.
No.
Well, today was a road down TV pilot memory lane, and honestly, I don't think any of the four are like, you're going to cry at night wondering why they never had another episode. But at least Jessica in the game deserved it. I looked it up and I saw that the comedies that they put in place on ABC that season that weren't those two, they weren't good and they didn't last. Savages and I don't know, some other show. What the hell was it called?
No, so they were having like they had like a really bad batch of shows that they were trying to pick from, and maybe one of the shows their luck could have turned around if they went with in the game. I don't know.
And that savior of the network was Jessica Simpson.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Joe, and you know who that is.
Bubsy.
What could possibly go wrong? I'll tell you next time on Pop Culture Paradise. If they like the show, what do they do?
Like, comment, and subscribe. All three if you're feeling up to it. For Joe, I'm Jeff. We'll catch you next week on Pop Culture Paradise.
And type in Bubsy is great in the comments.
And find me a Bubsy t-shirt on Amazon, please.
I can do Etsy.
All right.